Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for June 20th, 2018. On today's episode, we'll talk about a lot of breaking TV and film news. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Soda, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Weekend Editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
And Senior Writer Ben Pearson.
Hey, what's going on?
Writer Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
Okay, guys, we have a lot of late-breaking news and some very interesting stuff to talk about, so let's just dive into it. Minutes before going on the air, news broke that the future of a Star Wars story spin-off films has been put on hold by Lucasfilm and Disney. Ben, what do we know?
Yeah, so Collider has a report that says in the wake of the disappointing box office performance of Solo, a Star Wars story, Lucasfilm has decided to put all of its planned Star Wars spin-off movies on pause, or at least the ones that had the Star Wars story designation. So just to be clear, Rian Johnson's planned trilogy is still in the works, and the developed the series that is in the series of films that are in development from the Game of Thrones creators, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, are also still in the works. So right now it looks like the Obi-Wan Kenobi standalone movie and the planned Boba Fett film are the two biggest recipients of this decision. So the report says that basically everyone who was working on the Obi-Wan movie is no longer involved. And they also said that even though James Mangold, the director of Logan, was in early talks to write and direct a Boba Fett film, apparently those talks were taking place before the extent of Solo's box office disappointment were apparent to Disney. So that deal may or may not happen now. We know that The Hour's director Stephen Daldry was at one point in talks to direct the Obi-Wan standalone movie, but since that was never officially confirmed, we don't really know about the extent of his involvement at this point. So yeah, that's the basic gist, is that all of those movies, including maybe like a Yoda standalone movie, which had been rumored as well, and like a Solo sequel and a Lando Calrissian spin-off film, all of those projects are currently on hold from Lucasfilm right now.
Now, I think this is, not so surprising considering Solo's box office and even the critical reception of that film. Do we think that this is the best course of action? Like, is this the smartest thing that Disney could do, is decide to not do these standalone films?
I mean, I feel like they need to maybe take a step back and figure out what the best approach is. Obviously, they've had some problems behind the scenes, and initially what they have tried to do hasn't been planned perhaps as meticulously and carefully as it could have been. So maybe taking a breath and reformulating their strategy and figuring out which stories they really want to tell and which ones fans really want to hear is probably a good idea. But as far as stopping them completely, I don't necessarily think that's the right course of action, but there obviously needs to be some reworking as to what those movies are going to do and how they're going to function moving forward.
I think they need to reevaluate what a Star Wars standalone movie should be, because it's weird. When Kathleen Kennedy was talking to me about this around the release of Force Awakens, she was saying that these were going to be films that wouldn't have sequels. Solo, a Star Wars story, obviously builds to a point that, teases sequels that we'll probably never get. I don't think anybody I know, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan, is excited for these prequel films that concentrate on, beloved characters we know and care about. Most of the Star Wars fans I know want to explore different parts of this world, get introduced to new characters, and I think that's the appeal of Star Wars for
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think, in the article that I wrote up at Slash Film, I included a quote from Kathleen Kennedy from last year when she was talking about how, they were narratively looking at what they were going to do with the next 10 years of Star Wars stories and how they were theoretically maybe going to make more movies with Rey, Poe, and Finn and those characters. But she also said that they're looking at people who are interested in coming into the Star Wars world and taking us places we haven't been yet. And I think that last part about places we haven't been yet is one of those things that they're probably looking at a lot more seriously in the wake of Solo, right? Like, it seems like audiences have rejected the idea of seeing these familiar characters in a story that nobody really wanted to see. So the idea that we're going to see Rian Johnson's trilogy, which is going to have all new characters that don't have any connection to anything that we've seen thus far, and the Benioff and Weiss movies, which we're not really sure if those are going to tie in yet, but the idea that they're sort of pushing pause on these familiar characters and maybe thinking about expanding creatively outwards is really good news, and it speaks to the willingness that Lucasfilm has to pivot instead of just stubbornly committing to something and going down with the ship if that's what it takes.
Yeah. Let's move on to Marvel. Ever since Scarlett Johansson joined the Avengers as Black Widow, fans have been demanding a Black Widow standalone movie, and Marvel has been hesitant, or Disney has been hesitant to give us that. Last month, we heard that they are working on a script, and now we know that they're looking at some female directors. Chris, what do we know?
So Marvel has a short list of female directors. We don't actually know who's all on the short list, but the one name that's being singled out is an Australian director named Kate Shortland. She directed a film called Berlin Syndrome and another film called Lure. These are like small indie films that a lot of people haven't seen, but she's the name that seems to be at the top of the list. So don't be surprised if she gets the gig.
It is good that Marvel is looking towards more female directors. Of course, half the directing team on Captain Marvel is female, or the co-directing team.
Marvel has had, I guess a spotty track record with their female directors in the past. I mean, Patty Jenkins was supposed to originally direct Thor, The Dark World, and ended up splitting from that. There was some talks with maybe Ava DuVernay directing Black Panther, and that didn't work out. So, I'm glad to see this happen. I think a friend of mine was talking to me about, why do women always have to direct movies that are that feature female leads? Like, why is that always what's going on? And that's sort of like the conversation that we had the other day about a female composer scoring Captain Marvel, right? And I think the conversation is basically the same. Like, in a perfect world, women would not only be chosen for these projects, but all projects. But hopefully this will be a stepping stone toward getting to that world.
For sure. Let's move on to a Movie Pass is being introduced, or a Movie Pass-like service is being introduced for the stand-up world in New York City. I thought this was interesting. It's not really film or TV related, but I love the fact that kind of like this Netflix subscriptionization of the world is, happening in all these different corners of entertainment. Brad, what do we know?
There were seen Movie Pass shake up the film industry. It's made a huge impact. We've seen theaters try to catch up, to adapt, rushing to see if they can figure out something of their own. Something we'll talk about a little bit later, obviously. And now we're seeing that the world of stand-up is trying to follow suit and figure out a way to monetize subscriptions for their own use. And this is kind of a niche thing that's only happening in New York through the famous stand-up venue called Stand Up NY. And they've introduced what is called a Laugh Pass, which is a subscription for stand-up comedy shows. And this is an annual membership. The price might seem a little steep because it's $99, but that's for the whole year. And that gets you into pretty much every single show that they have at Stand Up New York. And they have a pretty good roster of comedians there. Not mostly because, New York is, a thriving metropolis full of comedians, who are getting stage time all over the place. But this is, a good venue, and they have huge shows all the time. And on top of being able to get into these shows, it also comes with some perks that you usually don't get to take advantage of without paying. So, like, you're going to get a free drink upon arrival. There's no drink minimum, which is usually common at comedy clubs, because that's where they make their money once they get you into the show to see whatever comedian you're looking to see. There's preferred seating. You get advance notice when some of the bigger celebrity comedians come into a show or get added. You get a free ticket to bring somebody with you, so you're not just going to comedy shows by yourself. And there's a lot of some other, little bonuses that come with this price. So this is something that's really cool. It's not something that, everyone will be able to get access to. It sounds like something that will probably only exist in larger markets, cities like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, if this is something that is successful and starts to spread to places where there are more comedy clubs. But I think this is an interesting way to get more and more people into comedy clubs. It's as somebody who used to actually help run a comedy club nearby here in Northwest Indiana, it can be difficult to get people into the door, especially when it's a comedian that isn't super famous, like a Kevin Hart or an Amy Schumer. And something like this, could go a long way, because if you see, even 3 or 4 shows in a year, that basically pays for itself as far as tickets costs are concerned. And that's not even including, the drink you get and the ticket that you get to bring a friend with you. So it seems like it's something cool that I hope kind of starts to spread that people can take advantage of.
It's an interesting concept, but right now it's only taking place at one stand-up comedy club right now.
Right, yeah.
So you don't have, like, a huge choice, and I would also assume for more popular acts, it would probably be harder to get in. And next up in the news, we have finally learned who is going to be buying 21st Century Fox. Ben, you have the details.
Yes, a Bloomberg report today says that Fox has accepted Disney's offer for the 21st Century Fox assets, and the number is even higher than we originally anticipated. So yesterday when we talked about this, we talked about how Comcast had put in a higher offer than Disney originally did with $65 billion, but it looks like the winning bid from Disney now is pegged at $71.3 billion, and it actually also includes Disney taking on about $13 billion of Fox's net debt, which means that the total value of this deal is higher than $85 billion, which is sort of nuts. But yeah, it looks like Disney is going to come out of this thing victorious.
Do you think Fox is really worth this to Disney?
I think so. I think there's been some confusion about what actually Disney gets out of this deal. So just to clarify for people who maybe haven't been following this since the beginning, Disney is going to get 20th Century Fox, the film studio, Fox Searchlight, the TV show or TV networks like FX, FXX, National Geographic, and Fox's regional sports networks, plus the majority ownership of Hulu. So that's a pretty significant chunk of content opportunities for Disney to exploit. So, I think they're definitely going after this hard, and it's definitely something that they're very, very much interested in.
We had heard previously that Guillermo del Toro was working on a remake of The Witches, and we now know that Robert Zemeckis is going to direct. Chris, you wrote this up for the site. What do we know?
Yeah, so The Witches is a book by Roald Dahl, who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and it was turned into a film in 1990 by Nicholas Roeg. And now Robert Zemeckis is remaking it. For a while, Guillermo del Toro was going to direct with Alfonso Cuarón producing, but now both del Toro and Cuarón are just producing the film while Zemeckis directs it. And the 1990 film is good and disturbing and filled with gross stuff, but it's also not really true to the book. It's a loose adaptation, so the thing with this take is that Zemeckis is apparently going to stick closer to the book for his version of the story.
Yeah, I was going to say I was a big fan of the book when I was a child, and when I saw that film, while it is a lot of fun, it definitely is not the book. It is interesting because, in recent years, Robert Zemeckis has been so enamored by kind of like technology more than filmmaking. Kind of, he had this whole deep dive into performance capture movies. I think he's kind of found a happy place where it's kind of like, a hybrid of live action in that. Chris, do you think he's the right person for this? Like, are we going to see Tom Hanks providing the performance capture for like the little mice and stuff, or what?
I don't think he's the right person for this at all. Robert Zemeckis has a lot of good films in his past, but I honestly think he's lost it. I don't think he has the directing prowess he once has. I honestly think like his last genuinely good movie was Castaway, which was a long time ago. I haven't really liked anything he's made since then. I mean, he's more enamored with, the tech than the storytelling, which, I mean, that may look cool, but I don't, if the story isn't there, who gives a shit? So I don't think he's the right person for this, but I'm willing to give it a chance.
But talking about looking cool, it's being produced by Guillermo del Toro, so I have faith that have the Del Toro touch and be kind of weird and out there, and that kind of excites me. But I agree, Zemeckis is not on the list of the top, 30 directors I would want on this project. But we'll have to see when we see the first images coming out of this. Let's move on to TV. Yesterday, there was news that we might be getting some additional Star Trek TV series. Chris, you wrote this up for the site. Is Patrick Stewart's Captain Picard going to make a return?
That's the rumor. Alex Kurtzman, who is now the showrunner on Star Trek Discovery, he was the executive producer, and he recently was bumped up to showrunner after the previous showrunners were fired for basically yelling at the writing staff. He's the new showrunner, and he just inked a deal with CBS to spearhead this entire CBS Star Trek universe, if you will, where there's going to be more shows, there's going to be an animated series, and one of the rumored shows is apparently a spin-off that will bring back Patrick Stewart's Captain Picard. There's no deal in place, but there is, a plan to make this happen. So that's one of many possible shows. There's another show that's going to be focused on Starfleet, and like I said, there's, an animated one as well.
There's a lot of potential in the Star Trek universe, but it seems I haven't really not to talk to many people who have liked Star Trek Discovery. I guess there's a lot more potential in Star Trek. I was a fan of the Next Generation and the original series and the J.J. Abrams movies. So
I'm just bummed that all of these shows are probably going to be on CBS All Access as well. They have to have something there to convince people to keep subscribing to that service. So yeah, I don't have any plans to do that, even though I'm kind of like Star Trek, but that's kind of, they haven't officially said that, but come on, that's going to happen.
Ben, what does CBS All Access have to do to get you as a subscriber?
Be free? I don't know. It's like I can't bring myself, and this is one of those things. It's like,
but if they had 2 active TV series that are running right now that you were interested in, would you subscribe?
Yeah, I think it would have to be 2, and it would have to be my favorite people involved, because I don't know, I just especially with Star Trek Discovery, like you said, not being not really lighting the Star Trek fandom on fire. If the hardcore fans aren't crazy about it, then I'm probably not also going to be crazy about it. So I don't know. It would have to be, they would have to have I don't know, some huge, Christopher Nolan is making some show or something like that is an entertainment shaking announcement that can only be seen there for me to finally decide to subscribe.
If David Fincher was making a TV series on CBS, would you subscribe?
Yeah, as long as there was one other one like that would get me to do it.
So David Fincher is not enough. You need 2 things.
No, it's not. Yeah, I need 2 things.
Okay. Let's move on to a story that broke earlier in this week. We haven't covered it yet, and that revolves around Gotti. We talked about how Gotti has earned the very rare 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the distributors of that film are marketing the fact that critics hate the film, but fans love the film, according to the Rotten Tomatoes user reviews. Brad, what is going on behind these shady user ratings?
Oh, boy, yeah. We've seen some marketing try to position a movie where, do audiences agree with the critics? Find out for yourself. Rugga-durga-dur. But this is something that's completely different. In this case, the marketing department behind Gotti is really just going full tilt and saying the critics have put out a hit on Gotti and they don't want anybody to see it. It's just the most insane thing. And so they're trying to point out that audiences are apparently loving Gotti, because while the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes is 0%, the audience score is apparently at 74%, or at least it was at the time of our writing this article. However, Dan Murrell over at Screen Junkies did some digging around, and they noticed that the user reviews that have brought about that score on Rotten Tomatoes from audiences doesn't really make much sense. It's pretty shady. He says, I went to look at the written reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, and of the first 58 reviewers with an available profile, 45 had created their account in June of 2018. That's the month we're currently in. Out of these 45, 32 have only reviewed Gotti. 10 reviewed Gotti and another movie, and 7 of those times it was American Animals for some reason, which just so happens, to be a MoviePass movie. And 3 of them had more than 3 reviews. Of the remaining 13 accounts, 8 looked normal. 5 had created their account in December, and those seemed like they were probably legit. So most of these accounts that are giving Gotti good reviews seem like they are merely plants trying to boost the audience score to create this disparity between critics and audiences.
You mentioned a connection with MoviePass.
Oh, yeah, that's because MoviePass just so happens to have acquired Gotti and American Animals. So, not really trying to throw out any accusations here. No, wait, yes, I am. MoviePass is trying to create a disagreement that doesn't exist while trying to promote a movie that nobody needs to see.
Well, we don't know that MoviePass is paying for users or bots to write these reviews, but it does appear to be very not so coincidental that a lot of people writing the reviews for Gotti are writing it for that other movie as well.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. Gotti is great. It's a fantastic film, and my check just cleared.
We were almost trying to convince Chris to go see Gotti in theaters to review it.
I kind of want to see it. I'm not going to lie. Just for that train wreck angle, I'm so curious to see if this really is as bad as everyone says it is. But I don't know if I'd go to a theater for it.
But also, if you didn't hate it and you gave it a good review, you could be a reverse Armand White, and you could, be the one review on Rotten Tomatoes that ruins the 0% streak.
It's true. Maybe I should do it. I don't know.
No, I doubt there's a reality where you're going to like this movie. Not that I've seen it, but what I've heard. But anyways, this is a long lead in to a big story that broke this morning. It was an exclusive on the site. I was working on it all yesterday night, and that is that AMC Theaters has finally announced that they are doing their own subscription service that'll compete directly with MoviePass. I think this is a very important topic to talk about, and I have a couple of things to go over with you guys, but the gist of it is they are announcing this service, which is called AMC Premiere A-List, which will run $19.99 a month, so $20 a month, and it'll allow subscribers to see 3 movies a week at AMC Theaters. No restrictions as in terms of formats. You can see an IMAX movie, you can see a Prime movie, you can see Dolby, 3D, all these things that are not allowed by MoviePass. You can actually see multiple movies per day. They just need to be within more than 2 hours apart from each other. So basically you can't get 2 tickets to one movie. And along with that, you're also getting discounts on concessions and a bunch of other stuff. The biggest thing for this, for me at least, in LA, is MoviePass is such a pain because you have to show up at the theater, check in, and buy your tickets there. With this, you will actually be able to buy tickets in advance online and reserve your seats, which it would be a huge help to someone like me. So I wanted to hear what you guys think of this. Brad, I know you are kind of a fan of AMC Theaters. I'm not sure. You've talked about it quite in the past that they are kind of the McDonald's of movie theaters, but you do see all your movies there. Is a service like this that is twice the cost of MoviePass going to get you to subscribe?
Well, first of all, let me say I wouldn't call myself a fan of AMC Theaters. The only reason that I frequent them as much as I do is because their theater happens to be the one that is the closest to my house and is the easiest to access. I have frequently had problems with them not running their theater in a way that would be indicative of a quality establishment. It's become very frustrating from time to time, especially when it comes to the quality of the projection and the screen and other numerous issues. However, I will say that this subscription deal seems like a pretty damn good one, especially considering how widespread AMC Theaters is and how many movies you're getting for a price that, even though it's double MoviePass, it still has some perks that outdo MoviePass in that way. Like you mentioned, having access to all the more premiere screenings, 3D, IMAX, D-Box, all that sort of thing is definitely a bonus. And the AMC Premiere subscription is included, so you get discounts on your concessions. So it's definitely a good deal in that regard. And I'm honestly probably thinking about picking it up. I don't know if I'll necessarily abandon MoviePass, because I'll still get my money's worth out of MoviePass whenever I need to go to a theater that isn't an AMC one, because sometimes they just don't get some of the indie titles at the theaters that are closest to me, and I have to venture a little bit out of where I usually go. But yeah, for most moviegoers, I see this as a pretty good deal, and something that a lot of them, if they're not already on MoviePass, are probably going to take advantage of.
Ben, is this a MoviePass killer?
I don't know about a killer, but I think it's definitely, it seems more sustainable than MoviePass. We've talked a lot about their sort of volatile business plans, and they've really been sort of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, like acquiring different movies and different production companies and stuff. I think they recently picked up Emmett Furla Films. They have a big partnership with them. So it's like MoviePass is doing everything they can to stay above water, and we know that AMC is going to be around for a long time. So I don't have any. I don't think this is going to be something that's going to disappear. Whereas I definitely cannot say that about MoviePass. Like, who knows if they're even going to be around in a year.
It's also weird though. When MoviePass introduced their $9.99 subscription service, the head of AMC kind of came out and said that would be devaluing cinema for the masses. I'm kind of wondering, their plan is only double that price. It's not like it's that much more money. I don't understand how their plan is going to be that much more financially feasible.
I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's got to have something to do with them not wanting to share any of the profits with MoviePass. And if MoviePass has done one thing for AMC, it's the fact that it's gotten people to physically go out and go to the theater more. And that's a good thing for AMC, especially in this case. Now they're trying to now that they've gotten MoviePass to do the work of changing people's behavior, they're just going to sort of brush them to the side, cut out the middleman, and be able to, rake in the profits that they need from concessions and hold in all of that stuff on their own without having to share it with anyone. So I think they may have made a lot of noise about how the business model of subscription stuff is not great or whatever, because it was at such a low price point. But I think this seems like a good balance for, a huge corporation like that to strike, and it seems like a pretty fair, reasonable rate, and you get a lot of good stuff out of it. So, I mean, I would definitely subscribe to this if I didn't see most of my movies through, press screenings and stuff.
Yeah. MoviePass on Twitter responded to this announcement. They said that they heard AMC theaters jumped on board the MoviePass, or the movie subscription train, twice the price for 1/4 the theater network and 60% fewer movies. Thanks for making us look good, AMC. I thought that was funny. Chris, is this I know you're not, I want to say, a fan of the theatrical experience. You'd rather see all the stuff in your own home. But
yes, correct.
Is this something that would interest you in any way?
I don't think so. I mean, like everyone else has said already, it does sound more sustainable than what MoviePass is doing, but I never got a MoviePass subscription just because, one, I didn't really need it because of press screenings, and two, I don't know. It never really stood out to me as a big deal. And this is, as we mentioned, more expensive than MoviePass. So I don't know. It just it does not jump out at me. But if I was someone who didn't go to press screenings and who went to the movies every single week on my own and was paying for it, then maybe it would appeal to me. But as it is now, it doesn't sound that great to me.
So
also,
Peter,
I also don't like AMC theaters, so I don't.
Peter, let me ask you, the one thing that seems more attractive to me is that I don't know, like, MoviePass is pretty clear about the fact that they're taking and mining everybody's data, and they're going to be selling that. Like, that's a big part of their business plan. And AMC doesn't have anything like that listed in their at least in their press releases or anything like that. Do you think that there's a data mining element to this new service?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's that incentive there at all. I mean, obviously with their Stubs programming, they are tracking users' behavior, but I don't think it's in a way of selling it to other companies, kind of like what MoviePass was doing. I will tell you this, that there are a lot of things appealing about A-List to me. Like I said, being able to purchase tickets ahead of time is like a game changer. That's something that I really hate about MoviePass. The fact that you could see multiple movies in a day, that's something I love doing in the summertime, and also in award season, is going to the movie theater on like a weekend and like seeing like back-to-back movies. I used to see like, 3 or 4 movies back-to-back some days, and you can't obviously do that with MoviePass, and MoviePass has changed my behavior in that way. I do have some disadvantages I wanted to share with you guys and see what you guys thought about. Yes, AMC, for the most part, I think are kind of like fast food cinema. You sit through a lot of commercials. There's more trailers. The presentation isn't great. Their food program has gotten better. There are some cinemas in the AMC line, like the AMC Century City near me, that are better than normal AMCs. My worry is if I were to subscribe to this and get rid of my MoviePass, that would limit my ability to see independent films. I know AMC theaters do have independent films in a lot of in some of their theaters, and especially in the larger markets like LA. But there's a lot of a lot of films that are not playing at the AMC theaters that are available at like Landmark and other cinemas that are available at MoviePass. So if I had this, maybe this pass might persuade me not to go and pay to see an independent film I might be interested in, like that Mr. Rogers documentary that Chris talked about the other day. This is the thing I wanted to bring up that I wanted to get all of your opinions on, is MoviePass has millions of subscribers. If this program also gets millions of subscribers, and millions of people are now, because it's not free, but like, you know how we treat Netflix, like if it's on Netflix it's free, we're paying for Netflix, but like to us it feels like it's free. Now I think people are going to feel like that with movies, so every weekend I feel like the big movies are going to be sold out well in advance. All the premium format cinema experiences like Dolby, Prime, IMAX, those experiences are probably going to get sold out well more in advance, because people are booking them in advance with this, because it doesn't cost you anything more than that $19.99 a month. So could this plan kind of ruin AMC for the vast majority of us?
I hadn't even thought of that, but I think it could actually. Now that I'm hearing it out loud, that does sound like it could happen, and that's another reason for me to stay home. So,
yeah, hearing you put it that way, Peter, makes me think that like, I sort of will treat a lot of things on Netflix as disposable because of that sort of mentality that like, oh yeah, this is essentially free. So like I'll start something and just sort of like not really pay much attention to it occasionally, or just like turn it off after a few minutes if I'm not really into it. And I wonder, because people are generally, I mean, there are some good people in the world, but for the most part, the people who frequent movie theaters, especially like on opening weekend, are loud and obnoxious and always on their phones and talking and whatever. And if you have that mentality of like, oh yeah, it doesn't even really matter, like I'm not
I didn't even think about that.
I'm not even paying for this, really. It's just like whatever. Then that behavior could conceivably get way worse. So I don't know. That this could be terrible.
Wow, that didn't even occur to me, that the behavior in the movie theaters might go down because of the value equation. I was just thinking it's going to be harder for me to see a movie in Prime or IMAX. Brad, do you have any concerns over this?
I mean, as it stands, because of where I live over here in Northwest Indiana, I don't encounter too many terrible people. Like I've had a couple bad experiences with people who can't stay off their phones or won't shut up, but most of the time, unless I'm going to see like a new Marvel movie or a Star Wars movie on opening night at the IMAX theater, I'm not sitting in like a packed theater where it's, loud, rude audiences all around. So, but that is definitely a concern as to whether people are going to start treating movie tickets like they're more disposable and acting like even more entitled than they already do. That's an intriguing point to make, and I hope that people are just too stupid to realize it.
Yeah, that, and I just wonder what's going to happen to the supply and demand, because, usually with these AMC theaters, there's only one, premium cinema, like either a Prime or an IMAX, and I feel like that's just going to get booked so far in advance for, not even like a Marvel movie, but just Skyscraper, or,
Gotti in IMAX.
If Gotti was in IMAX. But also, one last thing I wanted to bring up is one of the things that always made me feel bad about the MoviePass deal. I am a MoviePass subscriber, but MoviePass is kind of like the worst company. They just seem like bad people. The motivations just all around it just seem bad. But it seems like it's one of those propositions, kind of like Walmart, where they offer such a great deal that I don't mind doing business with the devil. So what I'm wondering here is AMC any better? We've talked about the quality equation with AMC, but their customer service is pretty bad as well. Is this a step up in quality of companies?
I mean, they probably definitely have their shit more together than MoviePass, because it seems like every month MoviePass does something else that makes people wonder, what's going on over there. And, while AMC isn't the best theater chain, I'm sure they actually have people who know what they're doing, at least more so than MoviePass. So they seem like they have a more clear goal than MoviePass, who are constantly changing whatever they want to be.
And MoviePass keeps on changing the rules, which I think is pissing off a lot of their longtime subscribers, on what movies they can see, how many times they can see them, how they can, it just seems to be always in flux. And this AMC deal, at least the way it's being outlined right now, seems a lot more clearer and a lot more fairer. But I wonder, now that there's both of these deals on the table and there's competition, there's real competition, could that actually make MoviePass better? Brad, any thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like they're being pretty cocky and they're not worried about AMC starting their own subscription service, but maybe when they see what AMC is offering, and if people start flocking and signing up for that service, it might give them some other ideas on how to improve and maybe do things better than what AMC already does. But considering they already had an opportunity to do that, and they've kind of dropped the ball at various points, both with their customer service and with delivering the product they said they were going to deliver when they first started their new lower price subscription, I can't imagine it's really going to do much to make them better as a company unless it gets to a point where they're starting to go under.
We'll be following the story as the quote-unquote official podcast of MoviePass, which we are not. We are always interested in this, because I do think, as much as we do talk about this, I think this is going to be a big part of the evolution of movie theaters in the next few years, and how things are done and what movies we see. It's going to have a huge effect. This isn't just some deal at your local movie theater. This is going to change this industry, and the medium of our choice, or maybe not Chris's choice, but the theatrical viewing experience. But I think we've gone overboard on this topic, so we'll end it right here. Slash Film Daily is published every weekday on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Please feel free to send us your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to peter@slashfilm.com. You can find all the stories we talked about today on the site and in the show notes. And please go rate and review this podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll see you tomorrow.